Buenos dias. Good morning. So good to be with you again as we continue our journey along the zoologies in search of the elusive Olinguito. So let's see where we left off in the last episode. Oh, yes, we were right here. Remember, the night was already coming, and all the night animals that prey on others, or the animals that are nocturnal and feed at night, they look and search for food during the night, come out. So, a viper hisses. Psst. And as the Olinguito turns around, here he is. The zoologist from Washington whispers, wow! Beetles nibble bark next to the burrow of carpenter bees. Beetles, carpenter bees, while a barbet and yarumo leaves shimmer in the woods. A skunk is on the prowl. A skunk is on the prowl, and startled, the Olinguito stops short. The zoologist zooms in and snaps a picture. A dove coos. Zoologist, I think this is the end of the book. But let's go back and explain a few things. The zoologist, remember, is hidden in every single picture, is from Washington, D.C. And now let's talk a little bit about this discovery. You see, at the end of the book, like I told you, the end of the book is my favorite part because it has so much information. We have a whole note about the discovery of the Olinguito, both in Spanish and in English. And here is what I explained to the reader, that the zoologist from Washington, his name is Dr. Christopher Helgen. And back in 2003, he began to study, to classify the different specimens found in the different museum of natural history. And the specimens of Olingo, which are from they are raccoon-like carnivores known as Olingos. And as he was studying them, he began to notice certain differences in the pelts, the fur of these specimens found in the drawers that every museum of natural history has, where they store these specimens found throughout the world of different animals and such. So he began to notice differences, and the differences led him to believe that perhaps there had been some specimens that had been mislabeled, that they were not Olingos. Well, he further his studies of this specimen by conducting very specialized testing called DNA testing, and this testing revealed that indeed it was a different species, that they were not Olingos. But could this other animal that is not an Olingo, that does not have a name yet, could it still be alive where it was last found? And that is when he assembled a team and went deep into the forest of Ecuador at the Otonga Reserve, where this amazing animal was found alive. Yes, with a whole team of scientists, he went into the forest like the book recreates and found that the Olinguito was alive. And I found about this because I read the paper and there was this particular article where Dr. Helgen reveals to the world about the discovery of this new species which he named Olinguito. Olinguito in English means little Olingo. So I read this and immediately said, Olinguito starts with an O. And I knew I just needed to find the other 27 letters of the Spanish alphabet in order to recreate the journey into the cloud forest, into this magnificent ecosystem of the cloud forest, in order to show my readers what this beautiful and unique ecosystem is like. So, the one other thing I like to do with you is to show you a little bit about how I did the book after I had this idea of recreating the journey of a zoologist into the cloud forest in search of the Olinguito. I then did a lot of research. I consulted with many scientists, including Dr. Christopher Helgen. And then I began to gather all the information and began to draw the pictures of what I imagined was going to look the book. So these are my sketches, and I'm going to show you this sketch right here. Incredible insects, resting iguana. A small sketch from that sketchbook gave birth to this larger drawing in pencil onto tracing paper that I used to transfer onto my watercolor paper, then looked for the right shades of soft acrylics that I mixed and blended in order to create the specific palette for every single plant and animal that appears in this specific illustration. The last thing I did was to go to my box of treasures where I kept every single specimen that I had collected while I was in my nature walks in the cloud forest of Ecuador. In this case, I picked mosses because I wanted to paste these specimens onto the illustrations to bring a little bit of the cloud forest to you, my reader. And that's how I created every single piece of art that appears in the book. Well, now it's time for us to put on our hats and go outside into the backyard, because you also can become an observer of the ecosystem that exists in your own backyard. So it's time to gather that journal and that pencil and that eraser and go outside, open that door and take a look around, stay a little while, draw any single plant and animal, whether it's an insect or a bird, whether it's a rabbit or a squirrel. Make notes. You can draw them. You can write about them. Try to observe either your whole backyard or just a little tiny square, a little 2 by 4 section, and see whether you can find maybe ants, maybe little worms, maybe centipedes, maybe you'll see a moth if it's in the evening. Just stay quiet. The quiet you are, the more things that you will be able to observe. If you listen to birds chirping, look up and make notations. What color was that bird? Do you know the name of it? What does the call sound like? You can also take a note of the plants that are in your backyard. What kinds of leaves do these plants have? And by plants, I mean all plants. They can be grasses, they can be ferns, they could be air plants like mosses. You could even spot lichens. Trees are plants, right? You can take leaves from the ferns, from the trees. You can then take those leaves and place them into your paperback book. Press them for a long while. This is a maple leaf. Put this book underneath another pile of books to put some weight on it. And that way, later, you can either decorate or make more scientific notations about your observations of your own backyard or the ecosystem in your nearby park. The point is that the more you stay outside, just staying quietly, looking, observing, taking notes, the more you will see that every single living thing is connected, because you will discover that there are bees that come to certain flowers. These bees pollinate the flowers. The flowers then will bear fruit. There are ants that burrow, make their nest underground. These ants, in their own way, are helping the ground, the earth. They are helping by aerating the ground. The same way those worms help by making all those holes, and the worm castings nourish the earth from which the trees take nutrients. And the trees, by having the water and nutrients and the sun, create then. They transform the energy of the sun into sugars that they store within their leaves and their trunks, and later on go onto the earth to even help other trees nearby. All living things are connected, and that is the wonder of the ecosystems that we all live in. So I hope that you will have learned a lot with the journey into the cloud forest of Ecuador, and maybe you can become a scientist or a naturalist or an author or an illustrator by looking, observing, drawing, reading, researching, taking notes. Goodbye, my friends. Adios.